So today we're going to talk about Alexander Payne. In our last episode, we spoke about Vincent Gallo
No,
and
Angelica Houston, that piece of...
mostly Buffalo 66. And I got kind of swept up in the memories of discovering that film and discovering other subversive and even more provocative type films. And then I thought I would continue on in that vein and explore shocking cinema. But I don't want to just focus on shocking cinema. And something I forgot to mention in our last episode, if you're a movie buff, I'm sure you know and remember, but when Brown Bunny, Vincent Gallo's follow-up to Buffalo 66 came out, the most talked about aspect of it was that there was a prolonged, unsimulated oral sex scene where Chloe, how do you say, Sevigny, gave Vincent Gallo, who was her boyfriend at the time, a blowjob in the film, and it just like played it out in the movie, which was a big deal because it was pornographic. And I didn't mention that, but it might have been kind of floating around in my head. So I was thinking, are we going to talk about Todd Solondz, or who are we going to talk about? But maybe we can lighten things up and we can talk about Alexander Payne today. And he's not without his own kind of controversial edge. You'd be foolish to underestimate his ability to go dark places.
Overnight, all the good things I'd ever done in my life evaporated.
Are you ever sorry you married her?
All the time.
Which is actually what I really like about Alexander Payne. Because on the surface, and if you watch the trailers for his films like Election or Sideways or About Schmidt, or let's see, what else do we have? Oh, Nebraska. Nah, it's not really a controversial film. But if you watch the trailers to these movies, especially Sideways, it seems like it's not going to go there. It seems like almost like this very surfacey story.
We're gonna play some golf, eat some great food, and we're gonna send you off in style. It's gonna be great.
But then he the director, Alexander Payne, he goes everywhere. So we can start with, I think we'll start with Election, which was his first kind of bigger film. I think he had one before that with what's her name? The lady from Jurassic Park. Laura Dern, I believe. Laura Dern was the main person in the other movie, I want to say. She was huffing paint. So that was how he established himself on the scene, was with the lady that was huffing paint. And so he was a little bit of a punk when he jumped into film. But then Election, it's about high school. It's about high schoolers, and so it's a high school coming of age on the seemingly.
They would do something like that on purpose.
I think you did it.
And if you want to keep questioning me like this, I won't continue without my attorney present.
Comedy. It would be like a light comedy, and I believe it was produced by MTV. So the assumption when you sit down to watch it for the first time, and it's got cute little Reese Witherspoon, and she's trying to be the president, the class president? I can't remember. The school president. I'm going to say she wants to be the school president. Something. But it seems fun, and it seems like it's in the vein of all of those fun teeny bopper movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, which I also love, and things like that. So you're like, okay, it's going to be like a light, but it's rated R. Interesting. But then the adult side of things is very apparent right off the bat. So Reese Witherspoon dominates the movie. It's her movie, but it's also Matthew Broderick's movie, who's the teacher. And I believe when it starts, actually Matthew Broderick they co-narrate. How interesting is that? They co-narrate the movie. Both of them have, and I believe another character even has narration. You don't see that very often. But so anyways, it starts with Matthew Broderick teaching the class, and he's very kind of boring. He goes through his motions. He's locked in his little world, his little small town life.
Say, all you ever knew were apples. Apples, apples, and more apples. You might think apples were pretty good, even if you got a rotten one once in a while. But then one day, there's an orange. And now you can make a decision.
And this is actually something that Alexander Payne presents really well across all of his films. Is he's really good at slice of life, like small town, kind of what the Coen brothers did with Fargo. And they do the same. They show the same thing, like not the most exciting people, but real people. And that's Alexander Payne shows that really well. So this teacher's just, he really seems like just a real teacher that's just kind of wants to do his teaching thing. And he feels really good about what he does. You can tell he's excited by it because as teachers are kind of like the masters of their own little universe that they create. And the students are their pupils. There's this natural respect for what the teacher says.
You're one of the most popular students at Carver. You're honest, you're straightforward, and you don't crack under pressure, as we all saw in the amazing fourth quarter against Westside.
So he starts out, and it shows him year after year setting his classroom up the same way and going through the same little routines of introducing himself to the class, introducing topics to class. Like he does it year after year the same way, and probably like sharpens it up every year. So you're like, okay, you know, he's feeling good about it. And then Reese Witherspoon's character enters the picture, and she becomes the bane of his existence, the thorn in his side, because she's very, very ambitious.
When I win the presidency, that means you and I are going to be spending a lot of time together.
Who knew how high she would climb in life? I had to stop her.
And she's a know-it-all. And they have this really weird, in the film, they have this competitiveness. And the way he's presented in the beginning, you're like, he seems above that kind of thing. He seems mature, he seems responsible, but throughout the film, he becomes degraded. And I think that's my favorite type of movie. It's a really simple kind of thing, but I don't think it's simple to execute really well. But it's when you have a person who is kind of the master of their domain, and then an antagonist enters the picture, and then that person who's the master of their domain, who everyone respects, slowly starts to break down and lose the respect of people around them. They show themselves as being very petty and capable of trying to get revenge and vindictive, and then their sole focus in the film becomes the destruction of the person who's bested them. It's so funny to watch a character who's got their life figured out just slowly start to fall into this, like, you know, dark comedy like situation. I'll give examples like Death to Smoochie.
The rhino. Thank you very much, sir. Save the rhino.
I'm the one who needs to be saved, not that ottoman with a hood ornament. Me! Save the rainbow! Save the rainbow!
Danny DeVito's really good at having people kind of unravel in the films and become petty and vindictive to where they're trying to kill each other. Like the War of the Roses is another great one. What About Bob is like one of the best ones, with the psychologist who's got his book, he's got his perfect family, he thinks he's awesome, but he's kind of dismissive and a little bit shitty. And then as it progresses, although Bob is annoying, he's innocent, but he's just the right kind of personality that causes this guy to implode. And it's so funny to watch the other guy just become broken down and embarrassing. And
You've turned a perfectly peaceful house into
to an insane asylum! Get out!
Why'd you need to kick Bob out of the house?
You think he's gone? He's not gone! That's the whole point! He's never gone!
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
It's so funny. Yeah, there's a million movies like that. But in Election, it happens in a slower way. And I guess what's also really funny about it is that Matthew Broderick is almost like a blank slate in a way. Like he's there, like the person is there, but he's really hard to read his face. So I think Alexander Payne, with the casting of Broderick, it was really good because it's hard to see him even when he's upset in the movie as being a villainous person. He just doesn't seem like, it seems so hard to press him into the corner where he's gonna like lash out and attack. So yeah, that's the kind of the plot, so to speak. She's trying to be the president. She has an affair, or she's, I guess you would say, sexually assaulted by one of the other teachers, who's Matthew Broderick's friend in the film. And that guy tells Matthew Broderick how he's sleeping with this 16-year-old girl.
When I think back on my relationship with Mr. Novotny, what I miss most is our talks.
What you're doing is really, really wrong.
And involves him. And then Reese Witherspoon's character, Tracy Flick, either accidentally or whatever, turns that teacher in. The love notes are revealed and the principal reads them, and then the other teacher who's having a sexual affair with her ends up leaving. And Matthew Broderick strangely blames her for that. Well, maybe not strangely. So maybe that's like where things really get psychologically interesting, because he's not liked her since she's been in his class. He has seen her as manipulative. And so when the friend gets fucked over by her,
Tracy's mom, she doesn't understand.
No, I say she doesn't. Fact is, I have never seen a mother so upset.
We're in love.
It seems like he gets what he deserves. Obviously he does, but Matthew Broderick sees something more. He almost sees like she's the mastermind who was in control, and his friend's the innocent, naive man who was played by her. She doesn't actually seem that upset or upset at all by any of this, or fazed by any of this.
When I win the presidency, that means you and I are going to be spending a lot of time together, and I, for one, would really like that time to be harmonious and productive. Wouldn't you?
She's very singularly focused on climbing. And so this what should have been a small thing, a small town thing, a small high school comedy thing that was not very deep, ends up becoming much deeper about the psychology of this girl and this guy and their fight with one another. And it goes very, very strange places.
And I think certain older people, like you and your colleague, shouldn't be leching after their students, especially when some of them can't even get their own wives pregnant.
And I think why I picked Alexander Payne is because he is a provocateur in a way, because he's not afraid. He's bold to go where he wants to go with his movies, with, like a 16-year-old having an affair with the teacher, and the way he plays it out, it's unflinching. It's like, whoa, but nested within this story that also has these silly comedic moments. It goes wherever he wants it to go. And I appreciate that, because obviously he's not just a shock value guy. He's great at everything that he does in these movies. But I think life is such a thing where if you don't explore all of the aspects of it in film, and you shy away from things that truly happen and real human motivations. Like if you were to play it out as a one-dimensional situation, which we so often do when it comes to, you know, the abuse of a minor, and it's like, you know, it's all on the adult because the kid is not old enough to be in control of the situation. But when a director can approach that, and it's not the case in every case, but in some cases you would assume, and in her case, she's intelligent and crafty, and, you know, Matthew Broderick's the villain, like, I think. So if you watch it, he's the one who engaged with, in a dispute with a minor. She's a kid. But it's just a testament to how smart she is that he gets down in the dirt with her, because he really does feel threatened by her, and he knows she's smarter than him, and he knows she's going to go further in life than him, and she has more energy than him, and she has more passion than him. She's going to do great things. You just know it. And it reduces him. It reduces him further and further, and that is real. That is a real thing. It's not a one-dimensional judgment and walk away. It's like, let's get into this and let's, like, you know, see who these people really are.
Do it, Jim. Just like that. Oh, God. Do it, Jim. Fill me up.
So that, I think, is really cool and really interesting. And using provocative things that would scare most people to even handle is pretty damn cool that he's able to do that. And so, yeah, and obviously Alexander Payne, if you watch it, he's got, beyond just the writing and the psychology of it, he's got a distinct visual style. His casting choices are impeccable. The principal in the film is hilarious. The music cues, he's got Morricone that he samples for things for comedic effect. He's got like he's just got a ton of tricks to play in this film. It's lighthearted, which is kind of counter to the material that I just described. It's fun. It's played out in a fun way, but it has the ability to also become serious, and it's silly and laughing at really things that would upset a lot of people, but continues to be like kind of, you know, light on its feet throughout the movie, which I loved at the age that I saw it. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was punk. But so let's move on then, because you would think, and go watch it if you haven't seen it, but you would think from watching a movie like that, okay, then this is going to kind of be this guy's vein, right? But then he does a movie like About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson that's like, it's like a midlife crisis movie, which I suppose is kind of what Election is halfway about. It's just nested within high school and dominated by high schoolers who are not actually all of them are not that smart in the film, but it is dominated by high schoolers and nested within high school and produced by MTV. So it was marketed as a high school film, and it was appealing to high schoolers because the high school parts were so well written, and the adult man having a midlife crisis was such a doofus, but equal measure given to both and consideration given to all characters in the film. And deftly crafted middle-aged man that maybe upon only viewing Election you would kind of not really notice that he wrote those parts so well. But then you go into About Schmidt and you see, okay, he really can identify humanity in all characters, and did so with About Schmidt, which would be a movie that would bore most high schoolers. But it's so good and human and well done. And then I don't want to spend too long on that because it's not really my favorite. But the follow-up movie. I think this is my favorite Alexander Payne movie. It's Sideways.
Well, I will tell you something. I've come never to expect greatness from a Cab Franc, and this one is no different.
Actually, it is my favorite Alexander Payne movie. And I watched this in high school too. And this is absolutely about, I don't even think they're middle-aged. How old are they? Yeah, they're in their 40s. It's Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church. And what's her name? It's got the ladies are great in it too. Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen. And the mom is awesome too. Mary Louise Burke. He's just really good at casting. But Sideways is like not a movie that should be appealing to a high schooler. But that's a testament to the skill of Alexander Payne for making a movie that even when I had no understanding of what this experience that these guys were dealing with was like, I still found so much to enjoy, and I connected with the characters.
You need to get laid, Miles. You know what? That's going to be my best man gift to you this week. I'm going to get you laid.
And my script writing teacher in college even said as much when my friend and I, we referenced Sideways in the class, and he was so baffled. He was like, how come you guys like that movie? That's like, I would think you guys wouldn't like that. It's like, no, man, it's just awesome. So and that one, again, it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of funny psychology, a lot of, Paul Giamatti just plays a great, what do you call him? Like a misanthrope. He's broken, beaten down on antidepressants, alcoholic, divorced.
I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
Okay, relax.
You come to find out, cheated on his wife, so all of the sympathy that you feel for him after the fact that you find out he cheated, you're kind of like, okay. But such is reality, right? Like, you don't just have people that you feel bad for. The people you feel bad for oftentimes have done things that create the predicaments that they're in, but we as humans like to have things played out for us in a very surface manner, like the guy you see experiencing homelessness on the side of the road. You're like, shit, man, I feel bad for that guy. And it's like, let's go through his history and kind of pick apart, because it's equal opportunity, exploration. And we've all done bad things that contribute to why we have to deal with what we have to deal with. So these guys, yet again, another movie that appears on the surface to be actually just a very surface-oriented film. Like Sideways is a movie where, Thomas Hayden Church is getting married. They're having their little bachelor tour to just drive around. And Miles is Paul Giamatti. He set up this like tour through wine country where they're just going to drink all these different wines, and it's going to be refined and fun and chill. And you can imagine in other people's films, this would just be a very like breezy film. It'd be like cuts of long stretches of highway, fun conversations, and nothing too intense, right? But as soon as they hit the road together, you see that these guys couldn't be more different. But their friendship works because Paul Giamatti is the intellectual, cynical, in his head, one-hit wonder writer, I think. Can't seem to finish his new book. That's a common thing in these stories. And then Thomas Hayden Church is like almost jockish, super handsome actor, but doesn't really care that he's not like that big of an actor, just kind of likes to have fun and experience like life in, he likes to experience life in a carnal kind of surface way. And so his entire goal through this tour is he wants to have sex.
I'm going to get my nut on this trip, Miles, and you are not going to fuck it up for me with all of your depression and anxiety and neckhead downer shit.
Oh. And he's getting married. So you're like, okay, douche, but also, I mean, can we be honest? How many? It's not uncommon. And so again, brave to write a movie about something that we don't really want to talk about. That there a lot of guys are like this, but and again when I was in college, one of the guys I really enjoyed hanging out with, kind of like this guy, married. I had respect for him, and then just through random, we're all talking. He starts talking about how his wife was out of town and he was at the strip club and he got a hand job while he finger banged one of the strippers, and it just was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to mentally, place that I can't. It's hard to handle the duality of people when they're vulnerable, and I guess that's one of the things that you can do with cinema is the things that people don't tell you or would only tell their best friends. You get exposed to it in cinema. It's like, why would you not utilize one of the powers of cinema, which is the ability to see what people do when they think that they're safe from judgment? And then we, the audience, become the judge, or at least it gives us a mirror to reflect on ourselves, right? Like, what kind of person are you? I don't think it's a permission to be a piece of shit, but it's like a recognition that, a recognition, I guess. So anyways, yeah. Thomas Hayden Church intends to have sex, and Paul Giamatti's character, Miles, wants to get drunk.
Miles.
He's an alcoholic, and the refined wine tasting ends up becoming Miles guzzling wine at every opportunity. Well, a lot of alcoholics end up becoming connoisseurs, so to speak, of wine and things. It helps them retain their dignity, which is really kind of a genius thing to frame a movie around, is this dignified man who thinks they're going to go on this, classy little tour together. But really, it is fueled. His obsession with wine is a little bit fueled by the fact that he just likes drinking it a lot. But he thinks they're going to have a lot of fun together. So he doesn't think he's going to be depressed and moody, but then obviously there are two different motivations, and Thomas Hayden Church being kind of a Philistine and wanting to have sex all the time, it kind of brings things down and things unravel and spiral. And then there's deviant activity, right? And so that would be the exploitive kind of controversial angle of the film. There's like unrestrained sex scenes in the film that are pretty intense, pretty adult, unflinching, showing Thomas Hayden Church's character just being a villain. And another thing is that Miles in the film, even though he's an alcoholic, and the tour does seem to be fueled by the fact that he enjoys drinking so much because he's an alcoholic. I mean, and he also needs to take his pills all the time. Like, he's very reliant upon substances to kind of manage day-to-day. There's also this really poignant scene between him and a woman who works at the what do you call it? The wine farm, the grape farm, and the winery. And they both discuss why they're so passionate about wine. And it is true and honest and very beautiful how they both have this appreciation for the grapes and what goes into it.
Why are you so into Pinot?
I don't know. It's a hard grape to grow, as you know, right?
I think Miles, like I said, Paul Giamatti's character is an intellectual, and he likes to dig into things and learn them, and it gives him a sense of control, probably. And he's a bit of an elitist, so he likes knowing things that other people don't know and teaching it to them. But he's also putting off the fact that he can't finish his book. Wow, lots of stuff going on in the movie. Lots of stuff to dig into. in a way, the story is like a grape, right? That she kind of, I forget what her speech is like, but it's like this little thing that contains all of this like rich flavor profile and all of this beauty in this little grape, and then the amount of time that like the whole process of it. And she appreciates the complexities of that small thing. And I guess that's probably what Miles appreciates too. And that's what we appreciate about the movie, is that it's a simple road movie about two 40-year-old guys, 40-plus-year-old guys who are past their prime. And nested within that is a story that has bold flavors, rich undertones, all of the stuff that if you are not savoring it on your palate, it's gonna be lost on you. You're gonna be like Thomas Hayden Church's character, and you're just gonna drink it down and say, "Oh, that's pretty good." And then Miles is gonna say, "Did you have gum in your mouth?" And yeah, so I guess. And if that was intentional in the writing, that's very impressive. And I think it was. I love that meta, the ability of writers who can encompass their whole story within the minutia of their films, right? The minute detail also works as a parallel for the broader thing. You can step back and all of the metaphorical comparisons continue to like translate larger and larger. It's an impressive movie. It's underrated. And credit to also the author who wrote the book, which I haven't read, by Rex Pickett. Must have been a great book, I think. And I'm sure a lot, if not all, of the depth that Alexander Payne explored was in the book too, I'm sure. But shot really well too. Great music. And I mean, Paul Giamatti is so impressive. And what we're talking about, I mean, actually, Thomas Hayden Church is amazing. They're all amazing. I shouldn't just focus on one specific. In his movies, Election, About Schmidt, Sideways, Nebraska, all of them, the actors and the way in which he films the actors is probably the most impressive part, but also working in tandem with how everything else is just like, it's just like clockwork. It's just going and it's just working so well. But then nothing's out of step for me anyways. And but the way people are portrayed is not such in other directors' works. They don't have as, like, lesser directors are not as clued in and good at lifting up the best elements of certain people or finding those things and drawing them out, which, you know, prior to this, I think for Paul Giamatti, this was a career defining film for him. And everything that followed was people realizing the depth that this man had from watching this film. Like, the roles he got after that, it was because they saw what he was capable of in this movie. And that was thanks to Alexander Payne, who really identified it to begin with, that there's this guy here. We just got to give him the right material and show him in such a way. And it's his best light. And it's the same with all of his actors. He does this, like Thomas Hayden Church in the movie, you know, kind of gets overshadowed by Paul Giamatti because Paul Giamatti's clever, funny, loud, but Thomas Hayden Church gives an equally awesome performance, and they are allowed to just like act, you know, within the frameworks of these movies that he makes. He gives the characters breathing room within the plot. It's not just scene after scene after scene where we're hurtling towards you know, because in some movies things become contrived when you know that we're just trying to get from point A to point B, and so the dialogue in between becomes, how do we get them to go from here to here? It doesn't feel like that in these movies. It feels like you kind of forget what's the destination until you kind of get there. the plot kind of vanishes and you're just kind of watching people live, so it feels really real. Yeah, check it out if you haven't seen Sideways. I can't imagine that many people haven't seen Sideways, but then again, I'm getting old, and young people certainly probably haven't seen or have very little interest in Sideways. But check it out, and I would be surprised if I was the only one who was young that this film really struck a chord with, for just being well made and great at showing the supreme sadness of men getting older who haven't accomplished what they want to accomplish, and the humor of friendship. Let's not lose that either. I mean, these guys on this, but they didn't completely neglect the buddy road trip aspect. That is totally there, but it's so much richer when you have a million other things to chew on within the film. The buddy part is like much more fun. So anyways, let's move on to what's next. What should we talk about? The Descendants. I enjoyed The Descendants, but I think the last one I want to talk about for Alexander Payne would be Nebraska, which I actually think is pretty underrated, and I don't know how many people actually saw it. But I mean, actually, and we can even talk about a little bit about The Descendants, in the sense that Alexander Payne, obviously he cast, A-list George Clooney in the main role, and George Clooney always knocks it out of the park. So maybe that's why it's a little less interesting to see George Clooney performing so well, because how many, like, he always gets put in movies that kind of, he just does. George Clooney does really good. But you started to see, and you could see it in some of the other movies, but in this one, he cast interesting, in The Descendants, he cast interesting bit roles, like Matthew Lillard, who did really good with his small role. And I gotta say, Rob Hubel, who's like, prior to this, I want to say, just really goofy sketch comedy stuff. But like, also, if you watch Rob Hubel in his comedy stuff, there's an intelligence behind his eyes. Obviously Alexander Payne saw and put him in a dramatic role, and he kicked butt, but it was totally not typical casting. And I mention this because then with Nebraska, what I find most interesting was that he cast the epitome of that, Will Forte.
Hell, I drove up from Dallas one time. That's 850 miles. I'd done that in 8 hours.
That's like over 100 miles an hour.
Oh, Bart was moving.
Who came from like MacGruber and SNL and just being a total goofball, to where I actually didn't really even like Will Forte. I was kind of burned out on SNL by the time he came on, and I came to love him. But at that time, I had a very surface kind of knowledge of Will Forte, and it was all just that he does this stupid, SNL stuff that I didn't really care for. But in this movie, he really gives an earnest performance alongside with Bruce Dern, the old man, the dad, that it's amazing. And Alexander Payne cast him in this film, obviously knowing what he knew about Rob Hubel, was just seeing the humanity behind those eyes. I don't know what he saw. Perhaps he saw some performance that told him that Will Forte was capable of doing this, but it's just outstanding. And it's another one where, just like Sideways, it's and it's not so, this one's not so heavy, I will say. It seems like Alexander Payne started to lighten up throughout as he got further into his career, and this one actually is more just kind of feel good, but it's punctuated by intense moments. And I mean, it's also about a guy who's Bruce Dern, who's just kind of not a very fun, nice guy to be around.
Dad. Dad.
Leave me alone.
And so the plot would be that he thinks he won a $1 million sweepstakes and convinces everyone in his town that he needs to go collect his $1 million. And his two kids, which is Bob Odenkirk, another goofball, but we have all seen Better Call Saul. We all know Bob Odenkirk can act. And Will Forte, they talk, and Will Forte takes time off of work to go take his dad across, I don't remember how far they drive, to Lincoln, Nebraska, because his dad is walking to Lincoln, Nebraska. They decide that he's gonna take off work and take him to go collect his money, which he knows there actually is not any money, that it's all just a scam.
Let me take you home.
I'm going to Lincoln. It's the last thing I do. I don't care what you people think.
Listen to me. You didn't win anything. It's a complete scam.
And yeah, I haven't seen this for a while, so remembering it now is kind of giving me shivers because it's sad. The dad is an alcoholic. The sad part to me is that the people in the town can be really disrespectful about the dad because the dad is he's obviously not getting that he's not a millionaire. And I think they mock him, I remember. And it was just very, very sad. But yeah, it's all shot in black and white. Which is interesting, right? You don't typically see black and white movies make a lot of money, so they probably knew this one wasn't going to be a big money maker, and it was not. It was 13.5 million, and box office take home was 27.7. So at least it did make a profit, but not a movie that's going to appeal to everyone. And seems to me, just based on the format of the kind of road trip slow story thing, it reminds me of A Straight Story by David Lynch, which is another one that I just love. These old guys that are kind of at the end of their lifetimes and going out on the road and, making amends and talking to people. I don't know, there's something really beautiful about that. But it's understated as black and white. It's a limited cast. It's not emotionally wavy, like not in the extremes that the earlier ones were. Also, like, look at Election if you've seen it. The slapstick stuff, it's slapstick paired with intense stuff that should be taken seriously is kind of like a very potent formula that doesn't work for everyone, but also is provocative enough to get attention because a lot of people like to laugh at things they're not supposed to laugh at. So that interplay between those things made it more punk rock, I guess. And then it seems like maybe he got burned out with that. And then he started trying to take on stuff that wasn't so controversial and wanted to play things straight, to where he got to this film, and this one is pretty well played straight. Nothing intensely unrealistic about it. Nothing too silly. It just kind of is a straightly told story in a very interesting, fascinating way. And then we kind of get into the next films, which I'll be honest, I did not watch Downsizing because there's this when directors have really, really good movies that I like to see them in this way. And then when I hear they come out with a movie like Downsizing, which sounds so goofy and not in line with Alexander Payne stuff, it's hard for me to watch it. And so I didn't, because it sounds like he just took the money. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's hard to read into the motivations of why filmmakers do what they do. But he was like a shooting star in the beginning with his first movies that were explosive, and then they just kind of, and they got into this respectable place with Nebraska where they're just kind of, they truck along, and they're beautifully made, but they're not like movies that everyone's going to talk about because you don't have all the crazy shit that was in the earlier ones. And then I think maybe he just kind of fizzled out in a certain sense, where, and then maybe he decided it was time to do something, an attempt at real commercial film. Maybe it was like that, but I don't know. So I haven't seen it, so I won't comment on it. And I also haven't seen The Holdovers, which stars Paul Giamatti, and it looks like in one sense a return to Sideways type stuff with the crazy Paul Giamatti, but also how it was presented in the trailer, which I tend to believe, which is that it's fairly straight story with nothing too crazy. I feel like he aged out of shock and awe and just kind of moved into sentimentality in a way, sadness, anger, happiness, but playing on emotions like that, not so much confusion, which was in the earlier works. There was questions, there was confusion, there was there was philosophy. There was a lot of philosophy in those earlier films that in a way it kind of does remove you a little bit from the characters. So if you make a movie that's more asking questions, then it draws you out of the humanity of what's going on. If you pose situations between characters, conflicts between characters, so that the viewer then in turn has to try to morally or philosophically figure it out, that's fun, and I love it. It's fun to analyze and philosophize, but then since half of your mind at least is busy working on that, you don't have as much unfettered attention for the characters and what they're going through. So in a way, it's not pure cinema. It's almost like a dialogue. It's almost like Greek dialogue where you're using the film as a container for the questions and things that you want to pose, and then it becomes an intellectual puzzle. And maybe that is where Alexander Payne kind of decided to just move into let's see if we can use the authentic mechanics of film and approach it without those pretensions of, but what's the broader question, and just say these are the dramatic elements that the characters are going through. Let's play those, and let's not think so much about posing broader questions. Maybe he got aged out of that. I mean, I guess I have too. And if you look at Stanley Kubrick with 2001 Space Odyssey and his movies, he told people to watch them and not think about them too much. Just enjoy them and as an experience, because that's pure cinema. And we see it more and more today, that people enjoy with their eyes and ears, and they don't want to run their brains too much. Or we have enough to think about intellectually. Getting invested in people's stories is one thing, because that's an honest exercise in empathy, sympathy, communion with another person's soul. It's an honest experience that it restores our own humanity. It makes us feel something outside of ourselves. That's to me, that's distilled down. That's actually what cinema in the purest sense would be. And so all that to say, I think maybe in my most charitable read is where Alexander Payne is moving with his films. He's moving more towards pure cinema and less towards, philosophical shit, which again, I love. I love philosophical stuff. So maybe next time, and I reserve the right to completely change my mind, we can or will talk about Begonia. And since we're talking about a Greek director right now, Alexander Payne, Begonia, and I might mangle his name, Yorgos Lanthimos is also a Greek director. Alexander Payne is Greek. Yorgos is Greek too. And just a little teaser of my opinion about Begonia. He actually has found a very interesting balance for me between what we were just talking about, philosophical, mentally stimulating, thought exercises, and real character. I think he struck a balance, at least for him for now, that works, that he's not ditching that intellectual aspect of the film. It's still there. It's still he still wants to pose larger questions, but also when you watch, the characters are very, very front and center.
We Andromedons are here to eliminate that suicidal gene, to save humanity, but also to save Earth from you and your kind.
And I haven't thought enough about how that contrasts against what Alexander Payne is doing. But perhaps because it's more pared down, it's stripped. Begonia is more stripped of external, is almost operating within a contained vacuum. It's almost in its own little aquarium, terrarium where it's happening, and there's 3 or 4 people that really, it's like a play where there's only this many people. And because of that, it allows the characters to become, to breathe as characters and us to care a lot about the characters. And then the questions are not coming from all angles all the time, where election is a fucking busy experience. And Sideways, even for only having those 2 main guys, is the questions and problems and dilemmas that we're experiencing are coming from rapid fire from all these different angles. It's complex, a lot of things happening all the time. And so it's a lot for us to Paul Giamatti stealing money from his mom because he's broke, because so many things. You're just it can become overwhelming. But in Begonia, it's very much here's our goal. It's simple. And I think that simplicity of the story, that we're going from boop to boop, and then we can get allegorical. We can let the characters be characters. You don't actually even have to give a shit about the allegory. Yeah, I'll think about it. I'm just kind of blathering at this point. All right. And maybe we won't talk about that next time. Maybe we'll talk about something else. But thank you for joining today, and we will see you again later.